And yes, we're live. Hello, and everyone. Thanks for joining this live session for today. A quick reminder, we do these every week on Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time and at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Today with me, yeah, by the way, before I forget, if you have any questions, this is live. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. And today with me, I have Roger from Kinsta. How are you, Roger?
Robert, I am doing amazing. Thank you for having me on the show. It's 8 a.m. here, so it's fresh in the morning for us,
Nice.
but I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, mostly because, of course, yeah, you have more than 20 years experience in the hosting industry, which means roughly you're my age, roughly.
I
Something
got the
like that.
grays. I got the
Yeah,
grays. Yep.
I got a bit more, but yeah. Yeah, to be honest, you host also the Kinsta talk show, right?
Yes.
And you're a WordCamp speaker, and during the last WordCamp Europe, you spoke about the auto rollback feature. So yeah, I wanted to invite you to share some information about updates. But before we start, can you give just a brief overview of what you do and a bit about your story with WordPress to our audience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Talk about myself. The worst thing I hate talking about myself. No, so
Even
I've
I, to
been
be honest, yeah, when you go to a lot of podcasts, it's like it's always, but yeah, it's good.
right, right. No, so yeah, I've been at Kinsta now for over 5 years. I'm now currently in the partnership and community management position, specifically for North America, but I love talking to my friends all over the globe. And I've worn a bunch of hats at Kinsta. I came in on the migrations team, worked with our manual migrations team. We do an amazing job. It blows my mind how we handle migrations. Love to dive into that at any point. And then I did some work with the client experience team, working on surveys, getting our onboarding emails and messages all figured out. And before that, I had an agency for like 8 or 9 years, and I say agency, it was an agency of one. So, it was me, and I would build, various small business, sized business websites. Got too caught up in social media marketing, burnt myself out. And before that, worked at a couple of different hosting companies, a couple of content delivery network providers before you could just go to a website and say, hey, I want CDN, and you had to actually talk to a person. So that was ancient times ago at this point
Indeed.
almost. And now I live in Southwest Colorado with my wife and my dogs, and just really enjoy being out in kind of the middle of nowhere. But then I get the fortune to travel to a lot of events and get to speak, which I've been really enjoying. That's new to me, is this public speaking thing. Really enjoying that. Seem to be connecting with people and doing a decent job there. But for the most part, I'm just having a really great time making good connections and helping people figure out how to host their WordPress websites.
Nice. Thanks a lot for the intro. How is it I mean, to be honest, I'm not a fan of public speaking myself,
Yeah.
but I just submitted my talk to WordCamp Gdynia in Poland, which is in 2 3 weeks. So just any tips? It's for the first time.
Yeah, so there's a sales book called Eat That Frog. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No, I wrote it down actually.
It's a really short little book. There's another one that's kind of similar called Who Moved My Cheese or Who Ate My Cheese or something like that. But the basic premise of Eat That Frog is like it's a terrible thing to like eat a frog. Like, ugh, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to do that. But the idea here is like do the thing that you're scared of. Do the thing that makes you uncomfortable, because that's how you're going to grow. And
Yeah.
specifically in that book, it's do it the first thing in the morning. Like just get that out of the way, and then the rest of the day is super easy. And so I kind of look at public speaking kind of the same way. I've gotten very comfortable at this point being in front of an audience, but that's very recent. And the number one way to get over that is to just do it and eat that frog, right? Like you've got to get up in front of people and do it. And there's a lot of things you can do to prepare for that, though. So obviously, the first thing to do is write out whatever you're going to talk about, even if it's just a 5 minute speech. Write it all out and then record it. And I do it as simple as I'll just record it onto my phone, and then I'll just listen to the recording. and it's absolutely cringe, right? Listening to yourself. I'm also I'm
Yes.
getting right. I'm getting better at that, but I think that's a huge step. Is like getting comfortable hearing yourself. And what'll happen is you'll immediately start picking up on, one of the things I like to do is I'll say a word twice. I'll be like excellent, excellent, in response to somebody. And it's not necessarily the worst habit, but I'm conscious of that. You become conscious of uhs and ums and learning to just be quiet, right? Learning to just pause and let things happen. And I'm talking about all this like I'm an expert. I'm still very much a beginner. There's way better speakers out there. This is what has worked for me: is doing the practice, listening to it, and then just getting out in front of people and getting their feedback. And people are very generous. Usually, if they have something nice to say, they'll say it. If they don't have something nice to say, they'll say something nice, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And but also having like good friends that you can actually go to and say, hey, what did you think of that speech? And good and bad, you're looking for good feedback. So lots of practice and just getting comfortable with it. That's
Yeah,
the big it.
that frog is quite good. I've done the same. I've been thinking about submitting a talk. Yes, no, yes, no. I was at the gym a few weeks ago. I was listening to some motivational speak from Joko Willing. It's like, if you're afraid, just go and do it. And I just went back home and submitted my talk.
Awesome,
So yeah,
awesome.
good. So see, yeah. Before we dive in, I have a very important question to ask you because what is the title or the titles of the songs you sang at the karaoke? And I'm like, yes.
So you're referring to WordCamp US that just happened last week. And Elementor and Kinsta, we came together and we
Exactly. Yeah.
co-hosted a party. And I put myself on the spot. So this is another example of eating that frog, right? I've never done karaoke in my life. Abject terror. It goes back to 5th grade choir class when my voice was breaking and you had to sing your name as an intro. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I committed myself to singing Hot to Go by Chappelle Roan. And so I opened with that. My team, the Kinsta team, was gracious enough to basically commit me to the DJ. Hey, yes, at 9:30, Roger's coming on and he's singing this song. And so that committed me. So having teammates or friends who will help encourage you is
Yes.
also a really helpful thing in here. And so so I sang that. I enunciated. I
Try to.
verbalized words in the attempt of song. Lots of people left the room, so I'll let you gauge the performance from that. And then also, there were a bunch of people that were gracious enough to let me kind of sing with them. I think there was a John Bon Jovi song. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name of the song right now. There was a Lady Gaga song. I'm gonna forget the
So
name of that song.
basically, you went with the flow and just dove right in and
Yeah. As soon as I did the first song and realized I wasn't gonna die or burst into flames, it's the same thing as speaking publicly, right? As soon as you
exactly. Yeah.
realize you're not gonna die, uh, it becomes a lot more fun. And so we just had a lot of fun, and there was a line of people lining up to do karaoke, like it was very popular. So I would
Nice.
advise anybody who's doing a WordCamp side party, add karaoke. There's a
Okay.
lot of karaoke fans in the WordPress world.
Good to know. Good. Thanks for the tip. So yeah, let's jump now. Yeah, about talk about the updates. So let's start with the basics. What update options do WordPress users have by default?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a good thing to dig into here. I may make mistakes here today. Please, people,
That's
call
fine.
me out on them. I welcome the corrections. So there's two main kind of areas of WordPress updates that site owners need to pay attention to. There's WordPress core. And so when we're talking about new versions of WordPress coming out, the next one's going to be 6.9. And I can't believe nobody has used the Bill and Ted meme, 69, dude. I don't know if you know what number are we thinking of, and their twins guess it, and it's 69. I haven't seen anybody using this meme yet. Please, somebody start
Okay.
using this meme for this release. But anyway, so that's WordPress core. Those are all the files that actually make the basics of WordPress work, the admin area, the ability to add posts and pages. And so there's updates for that. And there's a couple of options you have in choosing updates. You can have it be all manual. You can have the whole, anytime there's any type of update to it, whether it's a sub release or a major release, have it automatically updated. You can choose to just have security updates updated automatically. And then when the major releases come out, do that manually. And so that's core. There's some control there. When it comes to themes and plugins, and I'll kind of loop those together just for right now, themes and plugins, there's really only one update option, and you can either do it manually or you can set it to automatic update. There's no option at this point of choosing a security update, automatic update for a plugin. And that's important for a lot of reasons, and I'm sure we'll get into it here. The main reason that security is so important is, there's lots of studies, PatchStack and some others have come out showing that plugins are the main vulnerability for security when it comes to WordPress. And we can dive into all of this, but it comes down to the fact that anybody can write a plugin. And it's the power of WordPress, right? Anybody can create a plugin. It's just a couple of files in a folder packaged up, and you've got a plugin. And the problem with that is that the code quality can vary wildly, and unintentionally, a plugin developer might create a security issue and cause problems for the people that install that plugin. So that's kind of the basic overview of kind of how updates work with WordPress and the options that you have. Happy to go into more.
As such, there is no standard what defines a security update or not. No, as in, like with core, we know, because you usually have like 6.2, for example, 0.1, and the last digit is, if it's a minor update, the 0.9 is like its new features. But I don't think there's any standards with plugins and themes. There's no one follows any particular standards, right?
Yeah, and I want to make sure I preface all of this is I am not a developer. I'm not a complete expert on how the building of plugins works. My understanding is there is not a mechanism right now for security updates when it comes to plugins. And so that's why we don't have the ability to have automatic updates just for security updates. And as far as the mechanics that go into creating security updates for plugins, I couldn't really dive into the details on that, but it does seem like there's work that could be done there to create an additional feature for WordPress plugins.
Nice. So you work with a web host, so of course you see a lot of websites. What do you see in the wild, is in terms of, from your experience, do people typically use auto updates? No, what's the...
Yeah, so traditionally I have not seen a lot of people using automatic updates for WordPress, and a lot of that is because historically, when you did an automatic update and if anything went wrong, your site went down. And that's the worst possible situation, right? The last thing we want is the white screen of death, as it's known in the WordPress world. And that's just where you go to your website and all that comes up is a white screen. Like, worst possible scenario, right? For you, your clients, their clients, like the immediate way to erode trust in your domain name is to have a broken site like that. And so historically, people have not necessarily used automatic updates, especially when it comes to websites that generate some sort of revenue or income or are critical, places to get information for various groups and whatnot. So, traditionally I haven't seen a lot of it, but in the last year, I've seen a huge uptake in the number of people using automatic updates, and that includes myself.
Interesting. In fact, this kind of like brings it to the next question, because you did talk about the auto rollback feature in WordPress.
Yes.
Can you explain? Because that hopefully softens a bit the blow if something happens, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So last year, 2024, WordPress 6.6, I'm really glad that they chose an easy number for me to remember. The core rolled out automatic rollback for automatic plugin updates. And the terminology is all over the place here, but basically and this was already there for manual updates. When you did a manual plugin update, if there was a PHP error, the system would catch it and roll it back and let you know, hey, there's a problem with that update. As of 6.6, it's now been enabled. If you've got plugins set to automatic update and there's an issue in that update, a PHP error issue, WordPress will catch that. It will restore to the prior version of the plugin, and it will send you an email, or the administrator of the website an email saying, hey, we tried to update this plugin, it failed. In the meantime, these other plugins, if there were other plugin updates, did go okay, but you should look into what's going on with that other plugin. And so now we've got this safety net so that you can set plugins to automatic update and kind of forget about it until there's an issue. And then you'll get an email and then you can deal with it. And so since this has come out, I have on all of my personal sites enabled automatic plugin updates. And for my clients' websites, I've enabled automatic plugin updates. And life has been wonderful.
Nice. Good. It's good that there's this feature. But as we said before, like there's no actual standard kind of thing, which are security updates and not, so it's becoming very difficult. However, there are a few WP config directives, no, that users can specify or use, right? Or
yeah, no, and my memory's going to fail me this morning, but there are options you've got, and so when you go into setting automatic plugin updates is done through the WP admin dashboard. So it's anybody can go in there who has admin access to a website. They can turn this on or off. In wp-config.php, there are options to set in there for definitely for core updates. That's where you can specify if you want security updates only or if you want the whole thing to happen. I don't know that there's necessarily anything you can do in that file for plugin updates, but I'd love to be corrected. I'd love to have the audience correct me if I'm wrong. Please do. I'm not afraid of being corrected.
We'll find out. People like to comment in general, so especially when someone is wrong. Yeah, it's like
beautiful. Let's go. As far as I know, there's nothing in WP config you can do for plugin updates. But like I said, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Good. Considering all of this work that's being done, there's the auto rollback, different type of auto updates, and all these issues. I still see myself, and again, going back to your experience working with a web host, I still see a lot of people like still running, and also considering the fact that outdated software, especially plugins, is one of the major causes of affected websites. I still see a lot of people using like very, very old versions of plugins, like especially like WooCommerce. What are the most common reasons usually here as a web host? Like, because I'm sure as a web host, kind of sometimes you're in a very difficult position because if a website gets hacked, it's the web host, but no, like you didn't update it. There's that kind of back and forth. So what is the most common reason why people forget, I don't know, use a very like a 3-4 year old version of a plugin?
Yeah, great question. And you made an interesting comment there as a web host, right? We're almost always the first to blame.
Exactly.
And that's understandable, right? We're hosting the website. It's our responsibility to make sure that it's up and running. And so when something goes wrong with it, it makes sense that we're the first place that you turn to for, hey, what the heck's going on with my site? I'm paying you to host it. It's currently down. And we do see a lot of issues with outdated plugins, not only from a security issue, right? Like there's a lot of malware and hacking going on. And for the most part, we don't see a ton of that, but we see a lot of performance issues. A big issue that will come up is PHP compatibility. As a managed host, we really want to keep PHP as current as possible. And that's for a few reasons. The main one is performance. When they come out with new versions of PHP, it's not just because they want to have a bigger number of the version of PHP, right? There's actual improvements being made to the language. And so as a host, we really want to encourage people to use these newer versions because they're much faster. There's a lot of neat features being added to them, and there's additional security being added to it as well. And with older versions, right, you've got versions that still have security coverage. I think that's going back to right now 8.2 and 8.3 are in security coverage. So
I think so, yes. Yeah.
right, so the PHP organization is still maintaining those, but time is coming up, and I think 8.0 is about to fall out or just fell out. And so we really want people to upgrade their PHP. Well, the problem is that older plugins and older versions of plugins were written to an older version of PHP. And so when there's an upgrade to PHP, it can break those plugins. And so one of the number one reasons we see people not updating their plugins is because of the PHP incompatibility. And this comes to the plugin being incompatible, the theme being incompatible. There's lots of moving parts in there. And so we see most oftentimes these sites are just they're set up for an older version of PHP. It's no longer supported from a security perspective. And so we have breakage there. Kinsta does currently support back to PHP 7.4. That's a extended security update version there. There's a specific term for that. I'm gonna forget it right now. But
backward compatibility.
Yeah, and it's like EOL, end of life.
End of life, yes.
Yeah, and so we currently support back quite a ways. I mean, 7.4 came out. It feels like an eternity ago. I feel like it's over 5 years ago now. And so you've got sites that are still only able to run on 7.4, which means in a lot of cases they're over 5 years out of date, which is wild. And the major reason, as I mentioned, is they don't want to update the compatibility. A lot of the time it comes down to the theme, and that makes it's just really hard because the theme, either maybe they had a custom theme built 5-6 years ago. They spent a decent amount of money, especially for a small business, right? Spending $5,000 or $10,000 for a theme isn't a small amount of money. And so having to be faced with, well, okay, if we want to update this, we're going to have to update the theme. Is that developer even around still? Are they still working on things like this? Are they interested in doing this? Or do you need to hire somebody to build a whole new theme and go through all that process again? And so we see a lot of sites holding on to these older versions because either they don't want to hire somebody to do it, or if they're a developer, they've got other things they want to be focused on, and they don't want to be updating older versions of things. So those are the big ones. I think WooCommerce gets a lot of flack and has a lot of trouble. Again, I think a lot of it is because people put a huge investment into setting up a WooCommerce shop on the front end, and they just don't want to do that again, right? If they don't have to, they're like, well, wait, why should I spend money on something I've already spent money on? And I think this is where the education part really comes in from a WordPress developer or agency, is really helping a customer understand that software is a living organism, right? It's constantly updating, and you need to be ready for that. And so you need to be preparing your clients for the fact that, hey, in a few years, we're going to need to make some updates. Just be ready for that. And explain, hey, these are the things we've done to prepare you for those eventual updates so that they're easier, and really help them understand, hey, there's a process to this. We've got it all under control. We'll be here to work with you, and really stay focused on keeping everything as up to date as possible. And it comes back to what we started at the beginning of this with: security. And out of date plugins are where the security issues happen, especially when they're so out of date they're running on older versions of PHP. There was version, I think PHP 5.6 was notoriously problematic. We couldn't get away from that version of PHP fast enough, but I still see sites who want to come to Kinsta that are on 5.6, and we're like, yeah, we can't host that here. We'll migrate it over, we'll test it, it'll break, almost inevitably, I mean, we'll still always test it, right? There is a chance, right? We can update the plugins for you, and maybe it'll still work. But getting those sites updated and running on the current versions of PHP is going to make your site faster and also more secure.
Interesting. Yeah, I think WooCommerce is I've seen it. I think it's one of the most notorious for these things, mainly because I've seen businesses who has built custom applications to support some native application they have with their local bank or something. So it's very difficult. As a web host, as you said, like you usually try to help people, of course, but how how far do you go? As in, like there's obviously even if we have someone now, let's say, and they're still 7.4, one fine day within the next 2 3 years, they will have to upgrade somehow to move on. How do you tackle that? Because it's good for the customer, even though maybe they don't understand or maybe they find it frustrating. But
Hmm.
it's also for your name. Like if you keep as a web host, Kinsta, if you keep a lot of outdated websites, yeah, more websites from Kinsta will be getting hacked. It's a bad name. So where do you kind of like stop and say, or how do you handle these type of difficult setups?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily always describe them as difficult, challenging, perhaps. In the past, we were much more strict about our PHP versioning. We actually held to the PHP consortium's version control, right? So when they stopped supporting a version of PHP, we stopped supporting a version of PHP. And that definitely caused some very challenging conversations for our support team. And so now we've adopted kind of supporting a little bit older versions. 7.4, as I mentioned before, and 8.0 now are both past end of life for security updates. And so we've adopted that to kind of help those customers. Those versions of PHP are pretty secure. It's not like 5.6 where it was just not a good situation from security. These newer versions of PHP are definitely more secure. So we have a little bit less concern with that. But as these things come up, one of the things that we really help push our customers for is, hey, we've got a new version of PHP coming out. We'd be happy to automatically update that for you. If you don't want us to do that, let us know. And so we try and as gently nudge customers towards using newer versions of PHP. We've got we've got staging environments that allow them to create a copy of their site, update the version of PHP, and see what happens. If nothing happens, fantastic. Like you can now update the live version of your site to PHP and you're good to go. If there are issues, you can either work on those, or we've got partners. This is where it becomes a gray area, right? So our support team does have a scope of support. It's listed on our website. You can go look it up. Basically, the scope of support is we're here to cover the infrastructure, make sure it's working. And then after that, the WordPress site is really your and your agency or your developer's responsibility. That said, there is a big gray area here. And the
Yeah,
last
support
thing,
with web hosts. Yeah, so there's that fine line. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, absolutely. No. And so, we never want to come off as telling the customer that's not our problem. Go take care of it to somebody else. We might need to say that, but we're going to say it hopefully in a different way, right? We're hopefully going to be able to go, hey, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the logs, and you've got a lot of errors coming up from these plugins. Right? We can look at the path and we can see which plugin is throwing the errors, and so we can help the customer really kind of identify, hey, look, this is where you're seeing the problems. At this point, you can try finding a different plugin, just disabling and getting rid of that plugin if you don't need it anymore, and very basic kind of options. And then if they do, and we recommend, hey, take this information to your developer, or if you're a developer, here's this information, work with it, and kind of figure all this out on your own. Or we have an extensive partner program. We have a lot of agencies that we work with, and we're happy to make referrals if the customer is open to it, and put them in touch with somebody who can help with getting the PHP updated their plugins updated, and really figure this out and find a path forward. And so I think it's an important distinction that we're not interested in becoming developers. Kinsta is not here to develop your website. That's what our amazing partners are for. That's who we want to host. We love having agencies and developers host with us. We provide amazing tools for them to be able to work on the websites, from staging environments to application performance monitoring and all of that. And so we want to be the place where everybody comes and works on the websites, but we're not going to become an agency. We're not going to become a developer. And I say that to hopefully assure agencies and developers that, hey, when you work with Kinsta, we're not here to take your business. We're here to work with you. And so it becomes a dance for sure, because we want everybody to be running very performant and secure websites, but at the same time, we're not going to start touching your code and making changes to all of that. So there's a serious balance definitely in play, but we're always here to work as close as we can with our customers and give them as much help as we can.
Of course, and it's never easy taking over someone's code, let alone if it's 5, 6, 7 years old, running on some very old version of PHP. Good. Web hosts, in terms of updates, because as we've seen, if you look at all the reports, the two major causes of websites being hacked, WordPress websites, are user issues and updates, outdated software. Do you think web hosts have a responsibility or can do more, like to maybe can be a bit? You said like yourself, like previously you were a bit more strict when it comes to PHP. Now kind of you're a bit more supporting more like older versions. Do you think if web hosts would be more strict, or I don't know, have some sort of other tools or programs, it would help fix that problem slowly? Maybe users would be more encouraged to update more frequently. Do you think web hosts play a role like in this whole thing?
I think it's a great question. I absolutely think hosts play a role, right? We set the tone. We allow the PHP versions that you're going to run and operate. I mentioned that we're supporting older versions, PHP 7.4. There are some hosts that, they're still supporting 5.6 and even older versions, right? So
I wouldn't be surprised.
even as lenient as we are being, we're still being pretty strict. And so I see, and we also are constantly suggesting and urging our customers to upgrade to the latest version of PHP. As soon as there is a new stable version of PHP, we make it available so that you just go into your My Kinsta dashboard, you go into Tools and choose the PHP version, and you can update it right there. It might even be in our API now. You can build your own dashboards and interface with Kinsta's control panel through the API and update PHP. That may be there already. And so I absolutely believe that hosts play a role in this, because we're the ones who set the we set the infrastructure that everything else is then run on. And so if we're supporting very out-of-date versions of PHP, it's allowing those customers to stay on older versions of their plugins and stay in a less secure situation. And so, another thing that we do, pardon me, let me get a little water.
It's fine, no worries. Yeah.
So another thing that we do is we do send out vulnerability reports. So we monitor all of the sites on our system for uptime monitoring, but then we're also looking at the plugins that are installed. And as new updates come about vulnerabilities, we will identify the plugins on our system, and we will reach out to our customers and let them know, hey, your site or these sites that you have with us are using this plugin. There's a vulnerability on it, and we need you to take action and get this updated. And so we're very proactive in working with our customers to make sure that they're updating their plugins and identifying specific plugins that have issues that need to be updated. In addition to that, we've actually built our own automatic update system. So when you're in the My Kinsta dashboard, you can, from the My Kinsta dashboard, enable WordPress automatic plugin updates. And so that utilizes the existing automatic update feature that WordPress has built in. That's absolutely free, but we make it really easy for you to do it from the dashboard. We have an additional update service that we do charge money for. It's a premium service though, and so with that one, we're actually taking snapshots of the site before and after the update, and we're doing visual regression testing. And so we're catching issues that might happen that aren't PHP error related. Maybe you have some inline CSS that a plugin is controlling, and when you update that plugin, it breaks that CSS for some reason. And so the site's still running. There's no PHP error, no white screen of death, but the site doesn't look right, because the CSS broke. So with visual regression testing, we're going to catch that. We're going to revert it back to the working version and then let you know, hey, we just had this issue. Here's the screenshots so you can see what happened. Go and get to work on that. So as a host, we're rolling out additional tools to help our customers keep their site updated and really avoid these security issues. So yeah, back to your original question. I absolutely think hosts play a part in this and enabling it. And it becomes that fine line of being a host versus being an agency or developer, and so we try and balance that line as best we can.
Yeah. It's also a fine line because it's like you want customers, of course, like any other web host. You want to provide a good service. However, if you are really strict, there will always be another web host who supports an earlier version. So you can only you need to we have that problem by the way with the plugin. Okay. Sometimes we have with our plugins we try to bump up the minimum version of PHP we support, but you have to find that kind of like fine line because you need the latest version even for us because coding becomes easier, much more efficient and stuff, and you can provide much more functionality. But how many people are still running on the old version? It's a very delicate situation. You cannot just update left and be strict because you also lose users, quite frankly.
This is a great point, and I love hearing. This is stuff that I want to hear more about. Is talking to our plugin partners and learning more about the struggles that you're experiencing or the challenges. So in those cases, do you ever reach out to hosts who are supporting very old versions of PHP and just ask them, hey, have you thought about not supporting this anymore? Or do you do any dialogue like that?
We've never, but it's actually a very good recommendation. I've never tried it. Maybe that's a good point. As you said, maybe it's a whole kind of almost like this a complete circle because hosts, as you said, set the tone. And maybe if there are more developers who are pushing the host, like, listen, why are you still supporting 5.6, for example, when even 8.1 is almost end of life? Maybe that helps push everyone forward. I think it was also a problem with WordPress. Late in the last few versions, they really bumped up the minimum version of PHP, but up until a few years ago, it was like a really some very early version of PHP. So people were kind of like, okay, if WordPress, this was a problem for us as well. If WordPress is supporting a very old version, you kind of find it difficult to support a more recent version because like people are like, but WordPress still does it. Why shouldn't you? So it's a very, there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of people a lot of services and different things involved in this whole process. And the problem is, by talking to you, clearly the problem, when you start picturing these things, clearly the problem of updates is way more complex, way more complicated than we think. It's not as simple as, switch on automatic updates and everyone is happy kind of thing.
No, absolutely. Great point. And I think, staying on this thread a little bit, I love it when our plugin developers and plugin partners reach out to us, whether, there's a compatibility issue, maybe there's a configuration issue. Sometimes there's an Nginx configuration that needs to be done for a plugin to work a little bit better. And I think, most of the time we're okay with that. We just need to hear, like, if the plugin developer reaches out to us, lets us know, we love to work through these situations because, like you said, there's a full circle, right? It's like chicken before the egg kind of issue, right?
Exactly.
Like if
who's going to start?
Right? And it does, like you pointed out, if WordPress is still supporting a really old version of PHP, that almost sets the standard for everyone else. But I think the host can really take charge here because at the end of the day, there's no WordPress site without it being hosted somewhere. So, the buck kind of stops with the host in a lot of ways. And from a host perspective, the more current version of PHP that we're running, the more efficient it's going to be on our system. So our costs should hopefully go down. And the speed is going to go up, right? And so the customer's site is going to just run faster, which I mean that's what we're striving for at all the times, right? So,
Exactly.
but I think that there is definitely a lot of interaction that can happen between the plugin developer, the host, the WordPress core, right? So we just had WordCamp US, and I spoke there about sponsoring contributors. And one of the big things that I brought up in there was strategic, so practical reasons for sponsoring, right? So traditionally, there's more of an ethical argument of, hey, you should support open source software because it's the right thing to do. I have nothing against that argument. I completely agree with it. The problem is businesses are a little bit deaf to that, right?
Of
They
course.
hear money. And so the practical reasons that I kind of outlined were strategic, operational, and second order benefits. And I think in this case, it's a strategic thing, right? So if you're a plugin developer, maybe there's something in WordPress, right? Getting WordPress to support security versions for plugins. Maybe that's something you want to start sponsoring contributors for to develop that out. In like performance and speed and all of these things, the more that we are contributing to, whether directly or through sponsored contributors, to the WordPress core project, the more we can shape the project towards these things that we're experiencing in our businesses.
Yeah, no, rightly said. In fact, I spoke to a few company owners in the past who have contributed a lot, for example, towards Gutenberg when it was first launched. And that's why, when you think about it, it does make sense because, first of all, you're helping the WordPress project, of course, the open source, but also helps them even as a business. You're at the forefront because you're helping shaping what you'd like WordPress to be. And then, of course, your plugin is compatible with that. So, yeah, interesting. No, there's definitely, and as you said, it's a full circle. Everyone needs, I think it's always boils down to communication. Developers talking to communities, talking to web hosts talking to developers talking to the contributors, of course. It's just, yeah, one big circle. Yeah, good, one big network of people.
Absolutely.
We spoke a lot about the auto updates, and you also mentioned like the staging websites. In fact, I'd like to ask you a question, as because for smaller websites, it's much easier, but I'm sure you've seen like some very complex WooCommerce. Even though they are running the latest versions of everything, they are still nervous about auto updates. What's the best practice setup to install the updates, test them, especially if you have a complex website?
Yeah, no, really great question. And I actually, I did a webinar a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, with a bunch of Codable experts. And we were talking about this exact thing and going into how they handle these updates. And one of the guests on the panel was talking about WooCommerce specifically and how, first of all, there's no way they would ever use automatic updates for a WooCommerce site. And I can't argue against that, right? If it is a site that is generating income and orders are being placed, the last thing you want to have happen is something where the payment gateway stops working.
Exactly.
And now you've got people that are placing orders, but it's not going anywhere, or you're fulfilling orders, but you're not collecting money. Total nightmare situation. You want to avoid this at all costs. So there's a couple of ways to approach this. If you're the site owner and you have no interest in being a developer and doing all of this work, the first thing you need to do is you need to hire a developer or an agency to just help you with this. Because there are a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to check, payment gateways, form submissions, the list goes on. Also with WooCommerce, the complexity gets really big. You have the WooCommerce core plugin, right? That's just the beginning. There are so many additional extension plugins for WooCommerce that it makes you dizzy, right? But they're necessary for shipping and taxes and label making, and the list goes on and on. And so there's a lot of moving parts in there. So my first step is if you're a site owner, like get a professional to help you with this. Now, when you get that professional, you should be able to quiz them about their process for updating the website. And there's a few things that you should be listening for. The first thing is staging environments. None of this work should ever be done in the live environment of the site, because that's when you have problems. As we talked about, like if you update a plugin and it breaks on the live site, your site is broken. Worst possible situation. So you want to make sure they're using staging environments. That's just a copy of your website. Ideally, it's at the host, and that way everything is nice and contained at the host. It'll generate a temporary staging URL, so the developer can actually share the URL with you, the customer, or if you're a developer, you can share it with your customer, and they can see the work and verify, hey, this looks good. Usually for plugin updates, hopefully you don't need to do that level of showing the work, but it's an option, it's there. And then from there, they should really have like a checklist of how they're going to go about updating the website, what order they're going to update the plugins in. Sometimes updating WooCommerce first causes problems and breaks all the other plugins. Sometimes updating the other plugins first causes problems with WooCommerce. And so having an experienced developer who can understand how everything's kind of been put together, hopefully the developer you had put together the website is this person and you still have a good working relationship with them. And they know exactly how to update the site. When you're hiring somebody to build your site, right, these are the things you need to be talking about before you've completed building the website. What does maintenance look like? How often are they going to be updating and checking for updates? I would say you want at least once a month. If it's a serious site and it's making you some serious coin, you should be having somebody look at it, if not weekly, hopefully daily. If not weekly, I'm getting my words a little mixed up here, but they should be looking at it almost all the time, because they're basically the GM, the general manager of your website. You want to make sure that they're looking at everything that's going on in there and testing. So having a staging environment, having an order of operation for making the updates, having an order of operation for testing the site after the updates have done. So you want to make sure that orders can be placed. You want to make sure that you can charge the credit card. You want to make sure that you're getting all the details for fulfilling the order, and your taxes are getting calculated correctly. All of these need to be checked every time that there's an update, because if any of those gets missed, you're going to have unhappy customers, and that of course is the number one thing we want to avoid. So I think to recap here, when you are building your website or having somebody build your website, maintenance should be an immediate discussion in the discovery call. You should be covering, okay, what do you guys do maintenance? I would question hiring somebody who's not going to do maintenance on your website, because as we've covered this entire episode, updates are a reality when it comes to any type of software, and especially with WordPress, where there's not a lot of standards as far as security updates for plugins go. And there's also a lot of variety between the hosts that you're working with. And so having somebody who's going to be able to handle maintenance and talk you through all of this is going to really be something you want to focus on early. Short of that, if you overlooked that and maybe you hired your cousin's brother or something, that's probably still your cousin, like and they built the site and then they disappeared, right? They went and did it.
It's a very common
Exactly. And so now you're in that situation of, okay, now I need to find somebody to do maintenance for me. My first recommendation, reach out to your host, see if they've got an agency partner program, and they can help put you in touch with somebody. The host is very interested in your website being successful, right? Because if your website is successful, you're going to keep hosting with the host. So the first thing I would recommend do is reach out to your host and ask them if they've got any recommendations, anybody they can refer you to. Short of that, the WordPress community is amazing. Get into the Make Slack, start talking with people, ask questions. There's There's a support area. There's places for you to ask these questions better than others. Don't go into core and ask people, what agency you would recommend them to. If you get an answer, it's probably not going to be super pleasant. So be aware of all of this. The post status is a really great community to be a part of. There's a lot of agencies in there. The WordPress community is amazing. Go to a WordCamp. Go to a WordCamp, meet people like us and talk to us, and we can put you in touch with somebody right there. Hey, oh yeah, this person does WooCommerce. They'll be able to help you out. So there's a lot of options out there. The worst thing you can do, the last thing you can do, is ignore it. And I see this very regularly where people are coming onto the Kinsta platform and we can't host them because the site does not work with at least PHP 7.4. And they get very frustrated, right? They're in that situation where somebody built the site, they've disappeared. The host that they're on right now maybe isn't doing the best job for them. They're not responsive in support. They're running older versions of PHP. And so they want to move to a better place, but they can't because they didn't think about maintenance up front. So start thinking about this stuff now, start talking about it now, and it'll all get better.
Nice. I like the fact that you mentioned to hire a professional, because it's the same in security. I mean, like we as in like the community, we sell WordPress as like it's a very easy to use software, which is, don't get me wrong. However, we sell it as if like Johnny the baker, who just has in the evening likes to set up a website, can also maintain a website. And if his business or her business grows and they start having thousands of orders per month, the reality is that you need someone professional to help you with that website, because most probably you have much more experience running the business, the bakery, but running a website is totally different. So I like that, because very few people actually mention that. Oh, it's easy, 5 minutes setup. It's true, but as the website or the business starts growing, the game changes. There are levels to how complex a website can be, and how easy it can be. So it's a very good tip. I've actually, I don't think I've ever heard it much before, but it's good that you mentioned it.
Oh, excellent. Well, and I think this ties into open source in general, right? I think there's a misconception with the general public of, oh, it's open source, it's free, there's no cost. And it's really important that we distinguish for people to understand, yes, open source software is free to download and install, and you can look at the code and make changes to it. You have freedom to do that, so it's free in that sense. But it is not free in the sense that you don't need anybody to pay somebody to actually work on it. You have to have a host. If you're okay with setting up a web server and connecting it to the public internet and dealing with the fun that comes with that, then in that way, but that's going to take time, right? You're not having to spend time. Instead of going to a web host and saying, hey, here's some money each month, take care of that for me, thank you. You should also be thinking of it in terms of a developer or an agency working with you to really build the site out. When you start out, maybe yes, you can do it yourself, and it's really simple to maintain. But over time, you're going to want to focus on other parts of your business unless you become an agency. Maybe you decide to become an agency. But most people don't want to become an agency, right? They want to run their business. And I think there can be this tendency to shy away from paying for things around WordPress. I'm sure as a plugin developer, you run into this a lot. And so as a business, right, we need to be okay with that. Hey, some people aren't going to want to pay for premium hosting. Some people aren't going to want to pay for a premium plugin, and that's fine. The people that really want to have a business and that want to be serious with all of this are going to understand that it does cost money to make these things happen, and that when you do invest into your site, you get way more out of it.
Yeah. I think raising awareness about this issue is also important. We do, for example, with our plugins, we support the free plugins over the WordPress.org forums, which is great. But one-to-one emails is part of the premium. It's not the first time I receive an email like, I'm sorry, like, we cannot support you. Please go to the forum because you're using the free plugin. And they get angry. Or they post some. It's like, and they need to understand, like, yeah, there is someone maintaining the plugin, and like, to get support, there is someone putting the hours to support via email. Like, so why would they do it for free? So there's this, as you said, there's this fine balance. Yes, it's free. Actually, I think many, especially many developers, I've seen it a lot, given a lot of extra hours just to support on the forums, because you don't have to, quite frankly, and you don't have to have a free plugin, but why not? Help a bit, do a bit your part. It helps. After all, any free plugin, if it's good, it's going to help the community, help the WordPress grow, because there are more options in WordPress. But yeah, we have to accept as well that, yeah, nothing as such is free, as in no one is going to come and manage your website for free. It's the reality of life.
Absolutely.
One last question before we end this episode. There are a few, actually, I know quite a few people who have a website, and they rarely log into their website, because of course they don't need to, maybe like once every 2 months or so. What can we do? Because right now, I know most web hosts send an email when there are plugin updates related to security, but they don't, like, what can WordPress core do, for example, like when there are plugin updates? Because many people, they log in once every 2-3 months, like, oh, I need to update like 20 plugins all of a sudden.
Yeah. Really great question. I'm still pretty shocked at how little WordPress is promoting the fact that there is an auto rollback feature for plugin updates, both manually and automatic updates. I think we could do a lot better job of marketing this to the general public. I think that's one of the main reasons I gave my talk at WordCamp Europe.
That's what I heard about it, by the way. And we're developers. We're quite involved in the community. And that's the first time I heard, oh, what's this talk? Let me go. That's where I heard about it.
The feedback that I got from people who are very involved in the community, who were like, wait, I didn't know about this. Like it's shocking to me, right? And so I think we need to do a better job of marketing this. We need to do a better job of marketing WordPress in general. That's kind of a new thing. Not a new thing, but it's something that I'm really interested in talking to more people about, because I want to talk to more enterprise type businesses, right, who are using other CMSs. And the reason that they're avoiding WordPress is because of this open source and the lack of security aspects of it. And the reality is it's very secure. In fact, it's more secure because anybody can look at the code and point out, hey, that's not secure. And then we fix it. Right. Whereas with these closed systems, you have no idea. It's a black box. We don't know what's going on. And so I think this is a huge selling point of WordPress, right? Is, hey, it's got automatic updates. If you have a brochureware website, you're just doing a general marketing website, consider just having the automatic updates on. So I think we can definitely do a better job of just talking about all of this, promoting it more, making it maybe easier for people to enable it. Right now you have to go to the plugins page. You have to either select individually or select all and then say update. Maybe we have where the core update page, appears and we have the notification from core, hey, there's an update available. Maybe we incorporate plugins into that page better and just make it a much easier option. Hey, do you want to enable all your plugins to automatic update? Click this one button. And maybe also during setup of WordPress, we have, hey, how involved do you want to be with maintaining this website? Oh, I'm on it. I'm going to be creating staging environments, total manual. Or the other end of the spectrum, oh my God, I don't even want to think about this stuff. And they choose that option, and then that enables the automatic updates. So, I know that there's been discussion about improving the onboarding of WordPress, and I think this could be a really key feature to add into there and just make it really easy for users, because you can always undo automatic updates, right? And the fact that there's this automatic rollback now, it should be seen as just really safe to do it, unless, like we mentioned, you have a very complex e-commerce, WooCommerce website. In those cases, you want to be a little bit more hands-on, depending on how much revenue it's generating for you.
Exactly. Very well said. I like the fact that you mentioned the onboarding, because even like when you install a plugin, it would be nice to have a prompt. Would you like to enable an automatic update? Because at the moment, it's not enabled by default, and you have to go to the site. It's a small link, enable auto update. So yeah, that makes a difference. Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. Can you please tell people where they can find you or talk to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. I love being on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there, but interact with me. Like leave comments. Let's talk. Let's have a relationship, and then maybe like we'll connect, and maybe we can DM and talk about business. But I've got a post actually coming out really soon about not being awkward, and so don't be awkward. Like just talk to me. I post a lot. Leave some comments there. Let's have a relationship. I'm going to a lot of events. I'll be at Brighton SEO San Diego at the end of September. I'll be at Digital Collegium at the beginning of October. West Slope Startup Weeks in Durango.
Wow,
I'll be at CloudFest USA in November, just attending, say hello. Digital Summit Series in Dallas. And then 2026, it's going to be all over the place. I hope to run into you at an event
definitely.
soon.
Yeah. No, you clearly have a very busy agenda. But I'd like to highlight one point that you mentioned as well, just to add to it. Yeah, go to a WordCamp. I have made so many friends. I've learned so much. It's priceless, honestly. And the ticket prices at WordCamp are peanuts, 20, $30. It's nothing. So no, definitely go to WordCamps. Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Roger. Thanks a lot for your time. And yeah, maybe hopefully I'll see you at some WordCamp.
You're welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
having me on. And yes, let's run into each other soon.
Thanks. Thanks. And thanks everyone for following. Thank you. Bye bye.